So here's the thing, and I swear we're not bragging when we say this. We got to drive a ton of cars this year. Ultra-luxury coupes, family-friendly minivans, electric taxis. Impossible to park SUVs, battery electrics, plug-in hybrids, compact city cars, race cars, and, of course, a crop of Teslas. Our butts graced a variety of drivers' seats. The Verge's transportation editor Tamara Warren drove over 60 cars in 2017 by herself. Car companies traditionally loan press cars to reporters so we can experience new features, check out enhanced performance, and generally get a sense of what they are like to drive to better inform our coverage. It's a perk, for sure, but one we take very seriously. This past year was one of rapid change and escalating stakes for the auto industry. Electrification, autonomy, and mobility services like ride-hailing and car-sharing provided legacy car companies an opportunity to posture like tech startups. The car-buying public, though, remained blissfully unaware of most of these trends, snatching up gas-guzzling SUVs, crossovers, and pickup trucks in large quantities. But analysts predict that when all their numbers are added up, 2017 will be the first year since the Great Recession that auto sales slumped. With all that in mind, here is our list of cars we drove in 2017 that were among our favorites. Waymo's driverless minivan. I drove an interesting range of vehicles this year. Big gas guzzlers, compact battery electrics, and sexy convertibles. But the most interesting car of all was the one I didn't drive at all, but the one that drove me. See what I did there? My ride in Waymo's fully driverless minivan lasted all of 15 minutes, took place on a closed to the public decommissioned Air Force base in Central California, and only encountered Waymo employees disguised as drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians along the road. Not exactly a recipe for fireworks. And yet it was the most thrilling 15 minutes in a car I had probably ever experienced in my 37 years on this planet. My fellow passengers included another reporter and a Waymo employee named Deandra, who was unflappable throughout. I managed to conceal most of my giddiness beneath a layer, journalistic cynicism, but when the car expertly threaded a complicated intersection, my veneer slipped slightly and I think I said we. The decision to remove the driver from their equation wasn't a rash one, but rather one that has been 8 years in the making for the Google spin-off. It's one thing to ride in the backseat of an autonomous, or highly automated, car with someone behind the steering wheel. Riding in a Level 4 driverless vehicle was as close to a glimpse of the future of mobility as I've ever seen. We are still decades away from a reality in which these types of vehicles are able to roam freely through our cities and communities without restrictions. Their transition from manual to automated driving will be slow and complicated, and probably messy. But when it does come, it will completely transform how we get around. But it will never come if there isn't trust in the technology, and that will only follow an overabundance of testing, both physical miles driven and in simulation. There will be accidents and injuries, and maybe even deaths. There's already been one fatality. There's convincing research that suggests people have an extremely high tolerance for human error, and an extremely low one for robotic error. What happens when a Waymo minivan gets in its first fatal accident? It could set the race to autonomy back years, and grind a lot of this momentum to a halt. Waymo is gearing up to allow its first passengers into its driverless vehicles in a small Phoenix suburb. The scope is extremely limited, just a handful of people in a 100 square mile radius using the minivans for boring errands and other daily trips. You probably won't even notice when it happens. Andrew J. Hawkins' Green Wheels car sharing 2017 was the year I decided not to buy an automobile because my car sharing service is so utterly convenient and economical. I subscribed to Green Wheels in my home city of Amsterdam. It's pretty much the same service offered by Zipcar in the US, UK, and a few other countries. For a relatively low monthly rate, €25 for the frequent plan, I have access to hundreds of dedicated cars, which I then pay to use by the kilometer, usually 27 euro cents, an hour, usually €3. In my neighborhood alone there are 20 cars to choose from within a 10-minute walk of my house, and just 3 steps from my door. Unless you're super wealthy, owning a car in a major city is a huge pain in the ass. But with green wheels, I never have to hunt for parking, I don't worry about oil changes or someone dinging my doors and bumpers, and I can always pick exactly the right size car to serve my immediate needs. Trip to IKEA? Reserve a van. Weekend at the beach? Better get the station wagon to fit the 3 kids. Time for gymnastics? Grab the subcompact to take my daughter to practice. According to the latest AAA study, owning and operating a new car costs an average of $8,469 annually, or $706 each month. In 2017 I paid just over $2,000. Your mileage will vary, literally, especially since you probably don't live in a city as bicycle friendly as mine. Yes, there are a few downsides. The radio presets are never as I left them. And my car, usually a VW up, would not be my first choice to buy.